I'm not chatting to you about anything. I'm going to listen and see what the
Thank you very much. I think for me, the first thing that I need to acknowledge is that I didn't know that it would be like this. So it just shows that it's working. I think it's doing what it's supposed to be like. Because I think the aim of creating a platform is to bring comfort to everyone, to any person. I think in this case, the seafarers, to express how they feel today. Because it is only by being open, I've said this before, that we would then open from the point of view of those that feel something must be done, and to those that have the responsibility to do some of those things. So I think that link is very important. So therefore, we welcome these questions and contributions, because I think if you listen to all of them carefully, they were just not questions. They as well contain marching orders for us as to what is it that we need to do. I think there is a very clear acknowledgement that it seems, from the policy point of view, we are on the right track, in particular in identifying the need to have the tools that we would require in order to fully perform as a coastal state. That we don't have those tools, and if we don't have those tools, therefore, we're not going to do well. So, and that tool is that we need to put our heads together to build a national carrier. I think a national carrier is just one point, but I think what is coming out clear, which is what we have said, is that our shipping revitalization has to be based on coastal shipping. Because at least there's one thing that we are in control of. We are in coastal trade is what we South Africans can determine and state how it must be undertaken. So that one we are in control of. I think if you then move outside of South Africa, then you raise all these other issues. But from a coastal shipping point of view, those that will reject it would be those that are either benefiting at present with the national carriers. But I mean, a truly proud South African should embrace that concept. A proud South African should say, should in essence fact question the detractors of the idea that, but let's try it out, let us engage. It once worked, so we need to work with it. So I think what is coming out clear is that, I mean, we can't give the dates, but I think what is clear is that there is a common direction that is emerging from this discussion, that we need ships of our own so that we are able to grow the sector. But what I'm also hearing is that we need to reclaim what we used to be. I mean, the gentleman says here that we used to be sought after. South African seafarers were a jewel. They were looked up everywhere. So we need to just trace back as to our route. Where did we end up searching for Johannesburg, where it will not be there, or where did we actually go wrong? I think that's very important. And then one point that I want to reflect on is by the captain there, relating to we need to change the way we've been doing things up till now, because I think it's not working. Our selection, the way we select people to be cadets, needs a complete overhaul. We need to in actual fact, we must turn it around. But it's only, we can only do that if we want change. But if we don't want change, then we're going to be an obstacle to that. I think this proposal that before you even go and sit on the desk, let's get you wet.
Yes.
Yeah, let's get you wet. Come into the class wet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a survival center. So I think that's very important because seafaring is a culture. Seafaring is a way of life. I think it's been said. In the family, the brother of my father was a seafarer, and then it broke because after that, in actual fact, the story about my father is that maybe the reason why it did not then link up to our generation is because he went out to sea and never returned. Yeah, he never returned. My father used to tell us this story that his brother was a seafarer, but he went to sea and then he never came back. So that's my association with seafaring. But anyway, so we need to go back. We need to revamp the whole system. It's not working for us, and we need to use, I think, the issue about how we can take the advantage of fishing as a way to either, for it to be part of this development of a seafaring culture. Because they are doing seafaring. I mean, they are out there. They face even difficult conditions. It's not sophisticated in fishing. It's hard work. Complicated. Now, the other question related to this qualification, the SAPA, I think postgraduate studies, because in actual fact, some have approached me to say, but we don't even talk of postgraduate because you are not recognized, we are not a graduate. We are not regarded as a graduate in the first instance. Now, this is now 25 years after democracy, yeah? 25 years. We still have people who are serving world trade. They are holding papers that have got no meaning in our qualification system. I think we would really be fooling ourselves if we, as government officials, as the department, as SAMSA, repeating this, we are not ashamed of the situation. We must really be ashamed. I've been in the sector now. I only joined you in 2000. That's when I started. Then I've not appreciated the fact that you've got officers that come ashore. They want to further their career, that they are stuck. You have to go back to class. I think it's a shame. So I think this is one issue that we are taking here. I was just saying that we need to set up, now under the direction of the Department of Transport, we need to set up a team, a task team, to work on this, collect data, and together, I think we want to commit here, that together we will go to SAPA, we will motivate, we will engage, until we find the appropriate level of seafaring qualification in that hierarchy of SAPA qualification. I'm committing it that it's what we would be doing moving forward, but we need a team that will work with us. Those that are impacted, SAMSA is part of it, and the technicons and the colleges have to be part of it. I understand we created this wonderful organization called SAMSA, so we rope them on board. But this we have to lead as the Department of Transport, engage so that we find a solution. I think the Department of Transport wouldn't want to be associated with projects that don't produce results. We want results. If it doesn't produce results, it's irrelevant. If it's irrelevant, it means even ourselves who are there, we are irrelevant. And we must make space for those that would make the space relevant. I think that's the level of commitment that we want to give. There was an issue about automation which was not responded to, but I think this is, South Africa, I understand, sponsored a paper recently at the Maritime Safety Committee, at the IMO, where IMO is doing a scoping exercise to identify the legislative impact of this new generation of crafts that will be making, I think, that will be reaching our shores. So it is a reality. I'm speaking, I think, sometimes at the Maritime Law Association conference on this subject. I must still do my research on it. So which is part of it is automated ships, but some of it where the manning levels are reduced and so forth. There are quite a number of issues. So it is coming. I think it's something that we need to be ready to embrace. In actual fact, what we have done is that in the Merchant Shipping Act that is coming out, we have already identified those types of ships to be as what we that in the future we have to provide a regulatory framework for them. I think the issue cannot be repeated. I think it's been characterized by this cultural exclusion, but it should not be that we produce seafarers that cannot integrate with the global seafarers. That's not what we're saying. I think we understand the context in which it's being said, and that it is being raised as a challenge to us to do something for our people, and that's how we are taking it. That we need to really work around this issue, and I can just assure you that the issue of coastal shipping is going to be a reality in the coming 10 years. It's going to happen. Companies want it, so it's going to happen. But that one, in terms of building a shipping footprint through coastal shipping, is going to be a reality. And I think, in terms of the vision we have, it should be it's being realized. Moving forward, within the next 10 years, it would be something that we can identify and see and go in making a contribution in making us to be a truly maritime nation. I think I've covered those issues, and I'm sorry if I've left any of the questions that were asked, but I'm sure the other.
Thank you so much, Mr. Njuri.
I would like to thank for the first round of speakers for highlighting the problem. They were very emotive, very expressive in the way they delivered their message. And for the well-being of the seafarer, it requires more dedicated, more focused attention. And I think that was understood with the makeup of SAIM, the South African International Maritime Institute. They were meant to be the glue between seafarers and the academic institutions in South Africa. I would like to just focus on one particular point. I think Mr. Njuri has covered a number of the other aspects, and it is the caliber of cadets that you send to sea. And there needs to be some work done in that regard. Because the 80% dropout rate is not good for the country. It is not good for the maritime industry either. If you look at how it has evolved, I think when I started out 30 years ago, as I said from this morning, there's lots of stories. It was in 1988. And at that point in time, there was still, the white folk needed to make sure that they needed to undergo military basics. And as a sweet compromise, they said in this case, we would compromise by the fact of having those white cadets doing 10 weeks of military basics, of Navy basics. And then the people of color were taken on by the different companies that were, fortunately at that point in time, there was Seafarer and there was Unicorn Shipping Lines. But the progress was initially you got accepted to either be an engineer or be a cadet, and you started off doing 10 weeks of Navy basics. In that way, you needed to jump. If you come from the Indian Ocean, you needed to jump into this Atlantic Ocean, freezing waters. And that was the first test, the first taste of water. And the one thing that it's given you is camaraderie as to how you do it. So when signing on the first ship, the task that you were asked to do after completing your 10 weeks of basics was relatively simple and straightforward. It's a lot easier to sweep a deck of a ship rather than clean the lavatories of the Navy toilets. So those that were not up and not ready for the program fell off during the Navy basics. And following that, you spent 12 months at sea, undergoing sea service. And at that stage, it was also a dropout rate. And you got to the classroom after basically 14 months for your first days of this is what you're exposed to. And then a further 12 months to complete all of your sea service. And then you ended up with another 6 months of tertiary education before getting your first certificate of competency. And you'd see numbers dwindle. The first grouping was 60 in SANDF in the Navy. By the time you got to the classroom and completed with your certificate of competency, you're down to 20. So that's a significant amount, but it's a high caliber of officers that were created. So there needs to be a review from how it used to be in the old days, in terms of the training and the exposure to sea life before making sure that this is one day becoming your career. The disadvantage we're doing now, we're getting youngsters to come out of school, grade 12, not exposed to the sea, and many of them are coming from inland. And then you're asking them to spend a year or 2 years at a tertiary institution and then ask them to get on board a ship. And then the mindset is, but I've completed all the theory, why do I need to discount? You with me? So that's what, so this task team, which I think Mr. Truly is talking about, need to look at the way training is undergone at the moment. I'm not a supporter of the 12 months of grade 12 and then 2 years of tertiary education before walking up again. So that's my position, coming purely from an experience perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Captain Ravi Nagar. Mr. Maton, your closing remarks, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think if we look at what we produce, what we're really trying to sell as a product, and the product is our seafarers that we send out to the international market. And if our product is good that we send out, obviously we'll get the placements for the learners, and we'll get employment for them internationally. So we only touched on competency early on. Competency consists of 3 things. It's your knowledge, which we can teach at the institution, the skill that comes with practical application and practical exercises, and then the third thing in competency is the attitude. Now we can certainly teach the skill, the knowledge, and you can learn the skill and practical component. But the attitude of the learner, if the learner really wants to do the job, is the difficult part. So I want to support what Captain Nagar said, is that our selection process for learners into a program for tertiary education should be a bit longer than what it is at the moment, so that our learners are fully confident and they know what they are getting themselves in for, and get to the qualifications that they need to get to. Now, I'm a very firm believer of not excluding anybody. So, a couple of questions to the policies that's being made. So, the policy doesn't that there's various exit levels for various learners. Then we are wasting money, Mr. Tuli, because we'll be spending money on learners even in the selection process. And those learners, we shouldn't set them up for failure so that they get left out. There should be various other roles for them available where they can fold into as they progress through their career, and maybe that must be made clear, a well-structured program for them. For people like Mr. Wesley, I would like to give my business card so you come and visit me, we'll have a bit of a chat, so that you understand where alternatives are available for youngsters to progress, not necessarily going to sea, but fulfilling a valuable role within the maritime industry, and still supporting seafarers like we are doing. We're all seafarers from sea, but we're still supporting seafarers. If the policies we make doesn't address the practical training component, we've lost a great deal of what we're trying to achieve. And if the policy doesn't address the technology, you speak about automation, with automation comes technology. So when I went to sea for the first time, and I say we very often forget that, the vessels were simple, not so sophisticated. I came from a family that all went to sea. Your brother, your father, your uncle, everybody taught you something about going to sea. And the vessels were very, very simple, not that sophisticated equipment on board. So it was relatively easy to get a youngster like myself into a seafaring career and to teach me whatever I needed to know to start my career at sea. Today it's a different story. We're working with highly sophisticated vessels. The requirement of the seafarer and the amount of pressure on the seafarer has increased dramatically. And what are we doing to challenge those technologically aspects of what the seafarer is required to do? Now, just we've spoken about a lot of negative things. Some of the positive things is, I know through the QCTO process, the country is really busy looking at the various qualifications to get recognition through the SOCWA. So that process has already started. Maybe not as quick as everybody would like, but it has started. In some of the training aspects, especially with us, we're in our second year with our Office of the Watch program. Our Office of the Watch program is completely paperless. Only technology is used, only computers. And it's the way we feel is better for our learners. Everything on board is going to be computers. Everything that they need to do, they need to be obtained in a different manner to really adapt to the circumstances that they are thrown in today. It's sad that all the cadets has left. I just wanted to ask one question to the cadets. And the only question is, which one of the cadets really feel that they represent South Africa when they put on the uniform to represent other cadets? And do they really know how much they influence the opportunities of others that comes afterwards if they don't conduct themselves the way they should and if they are not interested? So with us, and particularly you that have the power to influence and change some of the things, I think from institutions, government organizations, where we can guide the learners better, we should, first of all, to get the selection processes right, and that those that make it at the end of the day and go forward with training initiatives, that those are the right people that we put forward in the programs. So that's very important. And hopefully that will reduce the amount of seafarers that we lose out of these programs. Yeah, and I think maybe lastly, we are also, you would have heard a number of items that's included in preparation for the seafarer. So there's a huge amount of pressure at the moment on education, educational institutions to cover the basic education of what's needed for seafarers. And that program doesn't allow much space for practical components. So we are revisiting that with us, specifically at SFTG, and we're looking how can we introduce more of the ancillary courses, more of the practical components, more control over the onboard training phase to ensure that we give to the learner what is needed. And then lastly, and this might be a much longer conversation, but I'll put my hand up first for further discussions on this. I'll make myself available, is I think we should really challenge the way in which we use the SA Regalas. There's a limited amount of time that we get on board the vessel as a training vessel, and with technology in mind, is that the only form of practical training that we really need, or is it a form of training? Is there not other simulators, simulated environments that we can use much more effectively to also contribute and to help the future the table for the.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for those closing comments. Noted. We will reflect on them again. Captain Rob Whitehead, your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, look, I can only endorse the questions that were asked and the responses that we've already had. I think they've hit the nail on the head. They've identified the critical problems, the solutions probably a bit more challenging, but I think we've got to the nub of the problem. You know, it's not that this hasn't happened before. It's happened around the world, this sort of thing, where there's been sudden change, politically, financially, and you know, look at the demise of Seafarer in the late 90s. It was really a financially driven thing. It was, as I recall, it was Old Mutual that decided to sell out. They were international, they were going to the London stock market, and Seafarer was a victim of it. And the result was we all suffered from it. There was suddenly no domestic fleet. The container ships went to the Danes, the bulk carriers went to the Greeks, the salvage fleets went to the Dutch, and suddenly there was no South African fleet anymore. It was a major cultural change for all of us. We were all at sea in those days, and we all had to reevaluate our future careers. So it's happened in the UK when the flag of convenience started taking over. The British had this massive international fleet, and overnight there was a massive change. Everyone moved to flags of convenience, and Britain faced the same sort of problems we have. So it's not like we're unique in these sorts of problems. They are international, and they're very much driven by economies and by politicians and financial implications. But I can only support the view that we've tended to focus on volume and not quality in shoving cadets through the system. Back in my mind, I somehow feel part of the blame must be with Operation Pakisa. I think it's a great concept, but I think there was all this money suddenly made available. The ultimate objective was to create employment, and the easiest way to create employment was to churn kids out of maritime colleges. It was one of the solutions, and it was a politically expedient to do. The money was there. There was perhaps money to skim off by some people, but it has distorted our reality of our maritime industry.